Hi everyone, John for a Wednesday, and it's time for a midweek medium. So what are we going to have a look at today then, John? I'm glad you asked that, John. Well, I think we'll have a look at some tinted graphite. So here we are then, we're going to have a look at some tinted graphite. So there's a few tinted graphites on the market. The main one that everybody knows about, and I've put it in this box because I just happen to have the box spare. Let's get rid of all these tools that I use with it. The main one is this box here, which is Derwent Graphite. Now that Derwent Graphite comes in a set of 24 colours, and basically, if you could imagine if a lead pencil, a lead graphite pencil, and a watercolour pencil had a love child, this would be what you would get. Tinted graphite. The other set I have here is Staedtler. Now these are the cheapest of any of the ranges that I've seen, and there's only 12 in that range, but Staedtler ones are actually really very good, and especially if you wanted to make a start, because they're the cheaper ones but they are still very good quality. So we have the Derwent Graphite and the Staedtlers. Now I believe I have every graphite or tinted graphite pencil on the market, and even not on the market, which brings me to these ones, which are the colour tints by Spectrum Noir. Now I cannot tell you much about Spectrum Noir other than these colour tint pencils and a few things that I do know about, but as far as I know, and I may be wrong in saying this, I believe Spectrum Noir don't actually exist anymore. And these pencils themselves, especially this set, are quite hard to get hold of. So these pencils are colour tints. So you've got Graphitints, the Staedtler graphite pencils, colour tints by Spectrum Noir, and they're tinted graphite pencils. And they come in two different sets. There's 24 in this range as well, and this is what you call a primary set. So they kind of like have assorted colours. And then this one is a nature set, and it is a load of colours that you'd expect to see in nature, obviously. So let's just have a look at the pencils. So all these I've used. I haven't actually used the nature ones yet because they're quite new to me, and I did seek them out and they were quite hard to get hold of. But you can see the colours, and you can see that you've got your greens, your yellows, your blues, red, and then on these you've got them, they're even more muted. So another brand that I found was Montmartre. Now I'm not sure whether these are still made. I cannot find them anywhere. I just came across these on eBay one day, so I was very lucky. But they're water soluble earth tones, and these are the colours that you get. So that's the Montmartre. And then the last one I have is this set by Cretacolor. Now these are called Aquagraph colours, and there is only 6 in the set, and they come in this nice little tin. And we have a white, and we have an Aquagraph blue, an Aquagraph green, an Aquagraph brown, a red, and a teal. So that's all the colours you get in them. So I'm going to quickly show you a colour chart. This set here is these colours here. You can see they're quite light and they're quite muted at the same time. This set here is the Staedtler ones. So that's actually a really nice range. I love this blue. This blue is absolutely superb. And we have the Montmartre. They're not quite as pigmented in my opinion. The Montmartre is these. They aren't as good as all the rest, but they are okay. Now these ones here are the Cretacolors, and they're the only ones you get in that range apart from the white. What I have here is something else I'm going to show you, is the Derwent Graphite in a palette form, and that is these. And that is them. And you get this nice little sponge, and you get this water brush with them that if you were outside you could use that, and it would be quite good. But the colour chart itself gives you a representation. I'm not going to say it's absolutely perfect to the colours, but it gives you an idea. And as you can see, I've used that, and I'll show you some pictures that I've used these things on. The good thing about the Graphite paint pan set is that you do actually get a more vibrant colour. You can have it more intense. So there's that one. So this one here is the Colour Tint Nature ones. Some absolutely lovely colours in there. Again, very pigmented. This one here is all the colours in the Derwent Graphite range. And you can see there's sort of like blues and yellows, bordering on reds. They're sort of browny reds, and it's all because they're all muted colours, and they've all got their own names. So all in all, I've got quite a good selection. So I've got that, the Staedtlers, the Derwents, and the paint pans. So I've got pretty much everything I'd need. However, you can get away with just one set, so that's not a problem. The art of tinted graphite pencils is that it is exactly what it says. It is tinted. So it's not an overwhelming, bright, vibrant colour. Albeit they are vibrant, they're not vibrant in the sense of, say, oil pastels. And they also contain graphite. So they are literally the love child of a lead pencil and a watercolour pencil. They feel more like a lead pencil than they do a watercolour pencil. However, they do feel a little bit waxier. But that's probably because of the pigment that's been put in them. Now, I see people using these, and I must admit I do get a bit frustrated. And I'm going to demonstrate why. So I'm just going to get a Derwent Graphite pencil. I'm going to get a nice brown. I'm going to colour on here. You don't press hard. However you can. That is entirely up to you. Now, I've just put a couple of layers on there, as you can see. I'm going to get a brush. I'm going to soak this brush. And this is what I see people doing. Soaking it with loads of water. And I'm thinking, why are you doing that? Now, I've actually put quite a bit of pigment on, and it's just a natural thing because I know how to use them. Let's try that again. A lot of people don't put too much pigment on, and then they go and try and soak it, and you end up with this washed out look. And the more you spread that, the more it's going to look washed out, because like in watercolour, the white literally is water. What you do need to do is to put a layer on and wet it. And if you know you want it a bit more vibrant, you just put a couple more layers on. You don't have to press hard. And you take off some of the water. Now, it could be a sponge or it could be a tissue. And that's exactly what the sponge is for in the paint pan set. You see, it's got the sponge. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to dop it on the sponge. And then I'm going to use it on this. And you can see already, look at the vibrancy of colour that you're getting in comparison. it does frustrate me when I see people putting lots of water on, because they're really not making the best of use of what they can of the pencils. You can do this and you can do this in lighter areas, but you're going to end up finding you'll want some darker areas. Get that by using less water and using it literally like paint. Now, the other thing that you can do, obviously, is get the paint pan. And if you only get a little bit of water and paint, you're going to end up with hardly any colour. So give it a good old soak and then paint, and you'll end up with a vibrant colour. And you can end up with anything in between that. You can mix it on the palette and add a little bit more water, and you can end up with colours in between. So your range and value of colours are going to be absolutely immense, and it's going to make that colour look different to that colour and that colour. So albeit you've got a very set range of colours, you can end up with various tones of each one of them. And because each one of these graphite pencils that I have are all slightly different in colour anyway, I mean, I may have a red in the Derwent Graphite and I may have a red in the Montmartre, but they're all slightly different. So I've got all the tones of them and all the tones of the graphite, and then add additional water and you get even more tones. So there's no need to soak this. As soon as you start, you do not need much water. And you can even reactivate them. Not that that's a very good idea, but you can. The other art of these and not using too much water is the fact that they are graphite tint, and it's in the name, graphite. Now you've got this graphite, we'll use this black one here, I think it's black. It's hard to see sometimes, yes, no, it's a dark green. And if you go and soak it with all this water, the graphite that's in that is giving you this lovely muted look is going to disperse and spread out. And you're going to end up with lines around the edges like you would in watercolour. And all that graphite is going to spread out to the edges. And all that lovely graphite that is there to give you all this lovely tint is just going to spread to the edges. And really, you might as well just have a pigmented pencil. Whether it's graphite or not, you might as well just have an ordinary watercolour pencil, because that is what you will get. And you know that you're ending up with that, because if you look in the water, after a while of using the graphitints, there's lots of little particles of graphite in the bottom of the water, and you'll see them. Now that's all the graphite that you haven't managed to mix on the page to get this lovely, beautiful colours and tones that you can get. And it all ends up either dispersed on the page and causing you problems with hard edges, or it ends up in the water. So what's the point in having a graphite pencil that's got a tint of colour if literally you are just going to wash that graphite away? That is the art of graphite tinted pencils. In conclusion, there are lots of different brands. I think I've got about 6, and there is a palette of them here. And they are graphite pencils with tints of colour. You do not use too much water. You can use a lot of water if you want a lighter colour, but if you want to get the actual full effect of the tint and the muted, beautiful, natural colours that these provide, you mustn't use too much water. On the other hand, don't use too little unless you're looking for really dark details. About with them, don't use too much water, you'll just end up with a washed out look, and you can get whatever you want. That's very watercoloury, that is. But if I add more water and scrub up more colour, I can then get very dark tones. And in all that, I'm not washing the graphite away. So that's a quick overview of graphite tinted pencils, and a quick overview of how to use them. Don't use too much water, and let the graphite lend itself to your picture, and you'll get this beautiful muted tonal valued picture. And I'll show you a couple of pictures that I've done. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but if you look in the bottom there, you'll see there's lots of graphite floating about in the bottom there. Now, you're going to get that, but of course if you use too much water, you'll end up with lots in there and dispersed edges on your paper. So just be very wary of that. Same with watercolour pencils, really. There's no reason to use loads and loads of water. They are not watercolour pans, and using lots of water will only disperse the colour out, and it just means that eventually will just cause you more work, unless that is what you need for the tone that you're using at that particular time. So you've seen me do a couple of graphite picture demos on my channel so far, and it's all well and good, like I said, watching me do it, but if you look at that now, you'll probably be able to see where perhaps I may have used a little bit too much water by mistake, but you'll also be able to see where I've darkened it up by adding more paint onto the brush and very little water, which is the way that you should generally go. And you can add it up in layers, that's not a problem, and you can get the darker tones. So I'll show you a couple of pictures as we've gone along. You can have a look at my video tutorials that I did, and I hope I've introduced you to another really popular but seldom used medium. I don't know why. I'm the same. I don't use it as much as what I should. I'm now using it to do this coloured boy footballer, and I'm getting on really great with it. It does take quite a while though, because it is actually quite a big picture. And as with all pencil pictures, they do take their time. Anyway, I hope that's given you a quick overview. I hope that was interesting. And I'm now looking to do memberships, so please keep a lookout for that. And please like, share and subscribe. And until next time, whomever, wherever you are, please have a great day, a great week and a great year. And I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.